Welcome, and thank you very much for joining us this evening. I'm Mary Ann Trieste from the Center for Career and Professional Development. We're just thrilled to have all of our eager students and employers joining us this evening. I would like to especially thank our MPA Academic Department and MPA Student Association for co-sponsoring this event with us and providing our refreshments. We are appreciative that our keynote speaker, Mr. Roberts, is able to join us tonight to offer his advice and guidance as well. Mr. Roberts graduated with his master's in protection management, and he currently serves as the Vice President of Quality Protection Services. He has 8 years of experience in operations and business continuity and holds a Master of Science degree in protection management with a specialization in emergency management from our John Jay College of Criminal Justice. He received publication of his 2012 research report, The United States Federal Protective Service, a Troubled Agency, the Need for Improved Contract Guard Training and Oversight, in the Journal of Applied Security Research, Volume 7, Issue 4. He has also worked as a research assistant for Director Charles Jennings, PhD, of the Regenhard Center for Emergency Response Studies at John Jay College. Chaim's work at the Regenhard Center included co-authoring an upcoming emergency response communications guide for natural gas and hazardous material pipelines and conducting field research about New York City fires during Hurricane Sandy. So without further ado, I'd like to bring our keynote speaker. Thank you so much again for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, I'm Chaim Roberts. It's a pleasure to be here, especially as a very recent alum. I see a lot of people I know I got to talk to, and it's really the first step that you've already taken by being here shows that you are moving towards that career development path. And that's really the key, is where do we go from where you are right now? But let's step back just a moment. Why am I here? Why is somebody who just graduated in May talking to you? And that's a thing called the rest of the story. And this was actually something introduced to me by your new public safety director, Kevin Cassidy, who I was lucky enough to have as a professor for 2 courses, and who I also got a chance to be a colleague with before he came over to John Jay recently. And this was something introduced by a gentleman, Paul Harvey, from ABC Radio back in the 40s, the rest of the story. So I wasn't always in the risk field, the security field, any kind of field related to what John Jay students traditionally study. And we're going to see where that moves us through to academic skills, to career development, and where you actually can find a path forward for yourself. So I started out actually as a jazz saxophone player in another life. Went to Rutgers, got a music BA. The skills I had were improvisation, attentiveness, analytical skills that come from looking at music and understanding all the intricacies of the data that essentially a musician looks at. But where that ties in, when I finally said after 7.5 years of operations and business continuity, and I'll get back to why that's business continuity in a moment, the idea was I had a passion for law enforcement, intelligence. As a kid, the Hardy Boys of all things, but that's where I got my spark. And then you look at this and you say, how do I bring that all together? And John Jay was a starting point. That really is the key. So when you look at that conglomerate of skills that I had, where do I move that on? Well, business continuity in the music industry that I was in involved moving from CDs to digital, MP3s. We're keeping a business running. We're making sure everything stays operational, that money comes in, that the business can continue to operate, which is not a far cry from when the phones go down and you need to know that you have any kind of POTS, plain old telephone systems in place, that you can reach your executives, that you can put a comprehensive business continuity plan in place and keep things running. And that gets to where I found John Jay. And that, again, is the key. You have already determined that that's your path forward. And that comes to the methodology that, for myself, has now moved me into the security field. It's something I like to call skin. Why is it skin? You wrap yourself in it, you live it, you have to embolden yourself with it, but it's skills, it's knowledge, it's involvement in things you're interested in, and networking. And so that's your career development path forward as a student, and taking what you do academically and moving it into that professional career development. So let's start with skills. You have skills. That's why you're a master's student. They've already identified that for you. You need to work beyond that base level of skills. Because skills is a broad term. You know how to do research. You know how to do data analysis. If you don't, you're going to learn it. Trust me, when you sit in a class and they tell you statistics that you haven't looked at math in years, that's where you get your growth in something like data analysis. Writing. Now, writing is key because every class they're going to come back to you and say, this isn't quite the way I want it. Fix this. Work on this. That's something really to be attentive to. Not take offense to, they don't like how I write. They don't like the way I write. They don't like the grammar that the way I put things together. The grammar is incorrect. You have to take all those things and really work to refine it. And why is that? When I say I'm published, that's not to say, hey, great, I'm now the expert in that field. But it moves me towards that point. It shows that I can take ideas that I've had, synthesize them, which is the research and data analysis, put it together and present it. So you want to pick relevant, timely topics. You want to really work on your writing. That's where you get to be that academic subject matter expert. And that's key, again, you've identified John Jay, you've identified your path forward through your degree by becoming that subject matter expert in writing and working to grow your own base within the industry. That's that key to moving forward. So that's an important skill. And presentation. How many times have we sat in class and you have a paper and the last night before you're putting that PowerPoint together and just kind of shove it to the side, try to get it done, you want to present it. If you take that extra day and you put that presentation together, if you put a writing piece with it, that's something you could take to a networking event, or you can take it to a professional event, the International Association of Emergency Managers, or any of the public administration organizations. They want relevant, timely topics, which comes back to your skill as a researcher, as a data analysis individual. And then you look at technology, computers, Excel, PowerPoint. We take them for granted. But when you look at what an employer is actually looking for, when I sit day to day in my office, most of my days with spreadsheets. So Excel, when we talk about a statistics class and math and throwing this together, it's not something we just want to take lightly. That's where the differentiation can come between somebody who is not gone for their master's, and not to diminish that, but somebody who is looking to elevate that skill level. And that's really the key. Where do you continue to elevate your skill level in your industry? The skills are not only that knowledge base, and that's why we're going to get to knowledge, but that skill is technology, presentation, research, data analysis, writing, but even more than that. And this is where you really move beyond your organization skills and your attention to detail. Because at the end of the day, you've left John Jay and you are the expert in your field, or you're working towards that. But if you can organize, if you can put your thoughts together, if you can really present well, that's where you become a step above, where an employer says, this is somebody I want to work for me. They may know more about a subject than I do, but across the board, they're looking for somebody whose standard is as high as they are in organizing, in time management, and in putting things together that are detail-oriented, where they don't have to get something kicked back to them and fix it. Because the last thing they want to do is spend extra time and money that they think they've already invested in just bringing you on board. And the time and money you're investing in John Jay, the idea really is you've already supposedly done that. So the attention on the skill side is, where do I elevate myself as a John Jay student? Because that's the key as a student. And moving into the knowledge, every class you have, even if it's one thing you take away, and I'm sure there are more than one thing a day per class that you can take away as a new item to learn, where are those connections? Look for them. If I'm in a human resource management class, why does that connect to my emergency management class? Well, it's still incident command and tying together, how do I deal with people? How do I look at all those pieces and synthesize them? And when you talk about organization, again, it falls in line. How do I organize myself as an administrative head? Because that may be where I end up, administering large organizations. I oversee an organization where we deal with security officers or investigations. We have to put all those pieces together, but we're always looking for, how do we connect them? How do we grow a business? How do we put that all out there, but not piecemeal? And that's key also. So again, when we go through knowledge and picking connections, picking your research topics. I mean, this is another piece that, again, moves you forward as part of that knowledge base. You don't just want to pick something randomly. If you have a direction you're headed, pick something that interests you. I mean, there are students who I know, who I'm friends with, who work towards the idea of finding research that's going to get them into the field as a professional, not just as the academic. And that's really key also. You want to focus on areas of personal interest and being the subject matter expert. And for me, that really started out with the Regenhard Center. Again, look for opportunities you have, and that's where we're talking about involvement. The Regenhard Center is part of this Safety, Fire, and Emergency Management Department. They throw 4 or 5 events a semester where you can go and hear speakers. But it's beyond speakers. You can work in research, and you can work with professors, and you can really become involved, grow your knowledge base, be that expert. I went down with Professor Charles Jennings as well as Norman Groner, and we went to DC and presented to the national academies what our research was, and this was in the process of development. And that's where, again, you're looking, how do I differentiate? Where do I find those opportunities? For me, I had to look for them. They're not just going to fall in your lap. And that's also key. When you're differentiating, you're at John Jay. Again, you've set this amazingly high bar, but you have to look for where you further elevate yourself. And that's also key. So again, when we then move on to that involvement, looking for those organizations to be a part of, the Regenhard Center, the Center for Private Safety and Security, I think MPASA is for public administration students, really seeking those opportunities. Go to events that you will meet other people. I mean, luckily, I recently joined New York Metro InfraGard, and we have individuals who are representative of the FBI and InfraGard who are here who I didn't know until I made sure that I became involved in something I'm interested in. And those, again, are rooted in my academic interests, my endeavors, and moving that into a professional field where I can meet people, speak with people, and learn from people. And again, that's where do you seek to be a differentiation point. Volunteering. Hurricane Sandy. Not only was I doing research, but we had a shelter that was opened up at John Jay and the Regenhard Center. For me, again, this was the point where I found my interest. But they had the opportunity to work at the shelter. Not only that, but to work with what they call Sahana, which is shelter management software that the city was using, after which I prepared a memo along with a fellow student. And we presented that and said, here are the things we felt were lacking and where the city could then find new ways to work with this software, because it was not an in-development piece, but how is it useful? How is it usable? And how do I, as an academic, take my knowledge, move that into where they actually need to hit the road and really make things work properly or efficiently? Because they may work, but what we do as master's students is look at the whole picture, the big picture, not just that little piece. How do I play into that? And that's really key also. And looking for outside education. If there's online courses, FEMA offers them. Again, as an emergency manager, that's my core, emergency management. University of North Carolina offers classes online also. These are all free. They're not credits you get college credit for, but it's something that, even if it's not something that goes on your resume, you're adding to your knowledge base, and you're developing that, and you're becoming involved. You're going to events. You're finding those opportunities. And then with that networking, that's really where it's key. And I saw a lot of people talking when we first got in here, and I hope after the questions and before we all are moving around, you introduce yourself to everybody around you, because that is really key. When I walked into a class my first day of school, I was scared. I had never been at John Jay before. I didn't know if I was going to be talking to a guy who was 20 years in the NYPD who I thought knew a lot more than me, and maybe he did, or somebody who had spent 20 years in the FDNY, or somebody at a federal law enforcement or Department of Corrections. But I had to introduce myself, because I'm going to learn something from them. I'm going to take something from them, synthesize it with what my knowledge base is, and then develop it further. And then you talk about looking at other organizations that you have people to talk to. And that's where you find your job. That's where it goes. Sending to a random job board is an important part of it, because that's, as we've seen, a lot of the transition to how people get jobs. But I know people who've handed resumes off and have gotten opportunities out of those. Myself, I was very lucky enough to have somebody understand my skill level out of what I developed at John Jay. And they said, this guy has some skill level. Let's look at where that lies. And for me, it was business continuity. It fell back on what my music experience was. How do I keep things running? How do I look at an organization? Because my MS degree is great, but that's an MBA with a focus in emergency management. I don't have to be an MBA student to go into business and look at a large picture of an organization. It may be very nice to go into the government and work there. For me, I didn't necessarily have that opportunity, regardless of how many times I applied. So where can I emulate that on the private side? You have to be open. You have to really look for where my knowledge, and for me, my knowledge base was business continuity. Where can I apply that? And it's really looking at the big picture. I can eventually translate that wherever I need to because the skills I have are rooted in improvisation, attention to detail, being able to prioritize, being able to do research, being able to write. And that's what I do day to day. It really falls to overseeing union matters, or looking at unemployment cases, or looking at human resource issues that are brought to me. I may also do a research report and do a business continuity plan that's 25 pages long. It's being able to move pieces together and find where your skill level can advance you. And when we talk about those research reports and why they're writing and the attention to detail, if you have one piece that's off, they're going to reject what you've done. They may not, but odds are you really need to have that exacting attention towards something you put together. And you should have pride in what you put together. And that's key. First thing I did when I came on to quality protection was put together an internal business continuity plan. 24 pages in about 4 days. They looked at my 1.5-page executive summary and said, that is awesome. I hope they said that was awesome. But I didn't get any negative feedback, and that's the key. Then you move on to the next piece because you just have to say, I'm the expert. I know what I'm talking about. If you have a question, I'm happy to answer it. But it's about finding my fit. And for me, that's where it was. And the next piece I need to leave you with really, again, going back to networking, this is key. Even with LinkedIn, I know a lot of people who are on there, a lot who aren't. It's a great way to start to interact. There was an individual in the business continuity field who I had met through LinkedIn. Used to be in the business continuity field at a Big 4 agency, now was working as a consultant. We interacted through LinkedIn, and I met him, and we spoke for about 2 hours about the field. I learned all kinds of things, not only about internal items that would affect business for me, but how the industry works. And it's that broad, big picture, what are we working for? What are we working towards? And so that's really key. And for me, it moved me from being a jazz saxophone player to a student. And in 6 months, I went from a 3-month temporary job as a manager of risk analysis and business continuity into a vice president's level. And it's that organization, attention to detail, caring about what I do, paying attention, having that knowledge base, and that idea of skin, the skills, the knowledge, the involvement, and the networking, and putting that together. And that's really what I encourage you to do, because that will move you forward. I've seen it. I've seen it for other people I know. I've seen it for myself, and I hope to leave you with that. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have that we can do that. Marianne?
Thank you so much. I'm always learning from our invited guests and keynote speakers, so I'm sure that as a group we learned quite a bit too, or even just to reinforce the importance of, professionalism, hard work, and of course, attention to detail, all of those great skill sets. So any questions? Feel free to raise your hand and I'll bring the mic over. They can be about, Mr. Roberts' kind of personal career path, or maybe about the field of protection management, security management.
That can be anything. Throw them at me.
Yeah. How to get through John Jay with your master's.
Somebody's got a question. I'll point you out. You have a question, right? Anybody over there have a question?
Well,
Tell us about quality protection services.
Absolutely, and I'll also be doing that after. So Quality Protection Services has actually been around about 12, 13 years. It's a company that got its start in quality building services, actually, is its other side. It's a commercial facilities company, and what they do is offer, on the quality protection side, initially security officers. We work in high-rise, Class A facilities, and there's a traditional thought of what a security guard is. We're moving beyond that. We train, we really look attentively at how they operate in those facilities. And we want them to be a resource for the facility, not simply a body sitting there. So what we do and what I do is oversee that program. I also am involved in the risk business, in the risk services side, because my specialty is business continuity. How do we look at facilities and build business continuity planning for them, or security assessments? It really builds off the knowledge that I had here. But it's putting that to use in growing a business that can be a comprehensive security or business continuity management type of environment that we can introduce to others, because a lot of organizations don't have the internal base to work from. But they're starting to get the idea, and this is also where you can find jobs. I was talking to somebody just before class about sports, of all things. Why sports? John Jay in sports. Well, he's a security specialist. As a security specialist, you have professional sports teams that maintain facilities. You have college teams that maintain facilities. You have traveling teams that need people to travel with them and oversee travel arrangements. It could be hotels, executive protection. You move across the board, and suddenly security is the integral part of how you keep sports operating. It can be sports fields in a local municipality. And it's also endemic in the organization to not see that as a need. So it's your role to go to them if you don't see that being fulfilled and say, you maintain these facilities. Is this something you need somebody for? Just because they didn't offer that job on a job board or somebody hasn't told you about it doesn't mean they don't have a need for it. So you can take what you know and say, you need me. Take me. And the worst thing they're going to say is no. Okay, I'll move on to the next person. They will need me, and they'll know they need me. So.
Great, thank you so much. Chaim, I had a question from the audience about the acronym, the SKIN acronym. Could you
Yes.
repeat that?
So SKIN, and this is a methodology I've tried to put together as a comprehensive approach. It's skills, it's knowledge, it's involvement, and it's networking. And the key is involvement in things you're interested in. But it's skills, knowledge, involvement, and networking. If you put those pieces together, you will have the tools at your disposal to move from academic into professional. Yes.
What if you have
I got to stop you for a second. I realized I should know name, what
Okay.
program you're in, or what you do. Could we just step back for 1 second?
Sure. I'm Stephen Campbell. We're friendly competitors, which is why I gave you the commercial.
Thank you.
And I own and operate Corporate Security Resources.
Very nice to meet you.
Hi, my name is Deborah. I just graduated with an MPA about a year
Congratulations.
ago. Thank you. My question was, what if you have a lot of areas of personal interest? How do you focus, or how do you zoom in on just one and make it work for you?
How do you zoom in? That is a good question. The way you really pick one is fine. It's kind of a hedge, because you can be the expert in any one of those fields. Can you give me an example of if you have two or three that are jostling around?
I love singing,
Okay.
and I love law, and I love sports, and I love just like everything. But I don't know how to, like I said, zoom in on that one thing that I love the most and make it work for me.
I think it takes a lot of introspection, and this is how I even got to the point where I picked John Jay, because I had spent 7.5 years, 8 years in the music business. I didn't know what the direction was that I wanted to go, and I said to everybody I knew, and this was the key of the networking and moving outside of my own thoughts, was, now I've thought about it. I know the 3 or 4 things I really like. What do you see that I really enjoy? What have I done that shows you what I like? What did I do as a kid before I even remember? And how did that influence those things that I like? And for me, again, the Hardy Boys, that one I remembered. I read the books. But my parents reminded me I used to take fire hats and run around, and that was my interest. It wasn't necessarily playing sports, although I'd be out kicking a soccer ball or playing baseball. If you're looking as a singer, if your interest is overseeing, as an MPA student, maybe you like overseeing large programs. There are grant funding organizations that look for people who understand policy. If you're talking about sports, again, you look at facilities and teams that need that. You really have to see where, and that's the connections. Where do you take those interests and put them together? Singers still are out on the road. There are still concert venues. Maybe you can be a facilities manager who understands organizations as a larger level. If it's something you have an interest in security, they're still touring. It's a matter of finding where that bent is based on what you like. is it's not going to be a clear-cut, this is what I can do. If I'm applying to an agency that has a role, even they may say to me, your specialty interest is over here, but we see you over here, and they're going to put you over here, and it may be a great fit. So you also have to try it out. If you apply for things, if you talk to people and find where that is, that's, I think, the best way forward for that kind of a dilemma.
Thank you. I think the flexibility, right, within that area of interest,
Absolutely.
because you never, sometimes it surprises you where you excel or, what you enjoy within, let's say, a certain industry.
You have to try it first.
Right, exactly. Great. Any other questions? Okay. All right, well, I'd love to give Mr. Roberts a round of applause. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let me just. So the next part of we're going to give this a try, and so hopefully we can coordinate this well. I'd like to welcome, we have quite a few excellent organizations, of course, Quality Protection Services, the American Red Cross, Bloomingdale's, Corporate Security Resources, the New York City Business Integrity Commission, the FBI, New York Metro InfraGard, and the U.S. Marine Corps here tonight at the various tables, so you can see placards there. And I'd also like to thank Chaim for introducing us to the special agents that are attending this evening, as well as New York Metro InfraGard. So through connecting with them and joining that organization, he was able to invite them here, and they very graciously agreed to speak with us tonight. So we're thrilled to have them. And so, thank you very much to all of our employer partners and organizations for being very supportive and, taking time out of their busy schedules to attend this evening. So the way that, and actually I can't forget, Jessica Roberts, thank you so much. Chaim's wife joined as well. So, we love when, of course, family members and just special people in our lives, we consider it a John Jay family. So, we appreciate everyone's engagement and hope that you stay connected with us as well. So we're going to have about 10 minutes, 10-minute rotations. I've asked our employers to rotate from table to table, and they very graciously said they would. And so every 10 minutes, I'm going to come up here and just ask people to rotate. So if the students could stay seated at your tables, we'll have our employer partners rotate from table to table. We also have refreshments in the back corner. I wanted to thank the MP Student Association and our academic department once again for providing the refreshments. Do we have anyone from MPASA here tonight? They wanted to say something? I'm not sure if they were able to make it, but I thank you on their behalf. And before we open up kind of for the open networking, are there any last questions? Okay, all right, let's get started. So if the employers could move clockwise, I think that would work. And if you could please bring your table card with you, we would appreciate it. Okay, thank you.